Welcome back to Open Line. We have with us Peter Rosenberger. He's a radio host, author of Caregivers with Hope. That's what is the book again? It's Hope for Caregivers. I don't know why I keep saying that. Hope for Caregivers. An important book. And we're talking about caregivers, which is something that so many people are dealing with, but not enough people maybe talk about. So we're encouraging people to call in. Let's go to Bob. Hello, Bob.
Oh, yeah. How y'all doing? I think it's a good program. I think, question I have, I've seen families just rip each other to pieces because they're doing this, that, and the other thing, and taking advantage of greed and so on and so on. But my question is, these doctors and the pharmaceuticals, is there any way to track them and keep up with what they're doing? They're coming out with new stuff every day. Maybe we don't need that. If it affects, Kardashians are changing their mental and physical attributes. That's wrong. Opioids.
Well, I think you're talking about our culture. I'll take from the Kardashians. I'll take that. Our culture. And is there a way to track?
Listen, that's the whole bag of crazy right
there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff to get into.
The Kardashians.
But our culture is lacking in a lot of ways, and
we have this mentality that I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I mean, think about this. I mean, look at like the way we approach any kind of medicine, even over-the-counter medicine. There's no regular strength anymore. It's like it's all maximum strength. I mean, whatever will kill the human body, they just back it off a little bit. Everybody's got to have, they got to feel good all the time. If we feel bad, that's something to run away from. Well, when you live with somebody with chronic pain like I have for so long, you learn some things about pain and about life and appreciating life where it is. Bob's right, though. Families are really ripping each other apart. I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a neurologist over at Vanderbilt, deals with a lot of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and so forth. And he was on my show, and he said, I said, what's the #1 thing that families discuss the moment they get a diagnosis of Alzheimer's? And he said, without a doubt, money. Mm-hmm. How much is this going to cost, and who's going to pay for it? Mm-hmm. Because it will cost a lot. And the same thing when you're dealing with somebody who has permanent injuries like this. You're going to be spending a lot of money, and a lot of that money is going to go to pharmaceuticals. And you can't just simply say, keep giving me more opioids. Here's the problem with opioids, Ben. When you first start taking them, you get about 95% efficacy and then about 5% bad stuff. But the 95% of the efficacy is making up for that. But over time, when you take a lengthy amount of time, it starts doing this.
Right. They become less effective, right?
Because it creates more receptors, and those receptors scream out for more opioid. And so you just have to keep increasing the dose, or you have to change the medicine. It's a constant moving target. If you got a doctor worth any kind of substance, then that doctor is going to be constantly engaging on different ways to do this. You're not going to just say, okay, here's this month's supply. Mm-hmm. You're going to be looking for nerve blocks. You're going to be looking for non-invasive things that you can do. It's a concerted effort of a lot of things. Holistic medicine, all kinds of things can be done. I was in my wife's pain specialist, and I were talking about this yesterday, and he's probably watching right now because I told him to be on tonight. Medicare, for example, will pay for thousands of dollars of opioids every month, but we're trying to get a lidocaine patch for my wife, which is a topical anesthetic that is done inside of a kind of a bandage thing, and you put it right on the affected area when you got real bad arthritis or whatever, and it gives pain relief for about 12 hours. You leave it on there. Mm-hmm. Far cheaper and less problematic than opioids, but they're fighting us on paying for that. I mean, it's crazy. They're going to have to think all the way down the formulary, and let's start using some common sense and some smarts here. If you don't want people to take opioids, then start offering them a better path.
I worry, and we've had a couple of callers say something about follow the money or whatever. I worry that it's almost, not to be too cynical, by design, that the drug companies aren't interested in weaning people off.
The drug companies are interested in money.
Right.
And then they buy a lot of people that help them keep that money. Now, I'm not going to mention any names or say anything about it, but that's why I ran on my own money. Believe me, that's why I did it. It's so awesome. No, I'm
but yes,
I just got back from China, and believe me, they know the problem too.
and so how can we deal with that? The deck is stacked in so many ways when you're trying to
I can't fight Washington. I can't fight City Hall. So what I got to do is do what I can where I am with what I have. And so I have to be the best steward of me and the situation I'm in with my wife, engage with my doctors, with her and with all the ones that are treating her as best as I can, do as much research as I can, be as informed as I can, and be as healthy as I can. And that includes my emotional and mental health. So that's why I keep pushing caregivers back. If you're dealing with somebody who is taking opioids, please, please, please see some counseling for yourself. See a support group for yourself.
And again, you've been on the front lines of the whole healthcare system. You're a caregiver, caring for your wife. You've seen this over the course of over 30 years. What most needs fixing in your opinion, from your perspective, in our overall healthcare system?
I think there's several things. I think from a caregiver standpoint, caregivers need to know where resources are to help them so that they can be healthier no matter what's happening. I mean, think about it. They may not make it, but you as a caregiver have to. So that's my biggest priority. As far as the healthcare system in general, I think that we spend a lot of money stupidly, and we have a lot of waste. I remember one time I was at my wife's prosthetist. That's prosthetist, Ben, not prostitute. Prosthetist. That's prosthetist. I don't want any phone calls go to Ben for that one. And I was up there. This is some years ago when TennCare was out, first started, and there was an ambulance out back. And my wife's a double amputee, both legs. And so I had taken off time from work, annual leave time, went home, picked her up, brought her over to the prosthetist office. There was an ambulance out back. I said, "What's wrong?" They said, "Well, nothing." "What's the ambulance for?" "Oh, it's a patient." "Are they okay?" "No, they just came for a visit." A visit? They brought an ambulance for a visit?
That's a lot of money, too.
And I'm thinking, who's paying for that?
It's taxpayers, yeah.
Follow
Medicare.
the money.
Or Medicaid, yeah.
Follow the money. And it's not Medicare or Medicaid paying for it. It's you and me paying for it.
Right.
Plus, I had to go home and go take care of my own wife, and now I'm helping take care of somebody else. And if you're going to ask me to subsidize you for your stuff, then be willing to work as hard as I have for things. Because I've changed insurance companies on her 6 times. I never had a gap in coverage. I've never lost an appeal. I know how to work this system. And it's hard, it's a lot of hard work, but why should I subsidize somebody who's not willing to do the same thing I did?
And what do you want doctors to know caregivers face generally, and then specifically with the opioid crisis? What your dealings with doctors, how have they been? Generally good, I guess, but
I think for the most part pretty good. I think that, of course, I get called Dr. Rosenberger a lot, and I tell them I'm a cranioproctologist. I help people get their heads. Well, never mind. Y'all know what that is. Y'all know what that means. But I think I would like for them to look at the caregiver and recognize that that doctor is spending 15, 20 minutes tops with that patient, but I'm there 24/7. And I think that, and whereas I don't know the science necessarily behind all the stuff that my wife deals with, I have a PhD in her. And I know her, and I become a valuable resource in this. And I have needs, feelings, health issues of my own. One of the landmines for caregivers, again, is failure to see their own doctors. 72% of caregivers do not see their own doctor regularly. There's 65 million. So that's, I'm terrible at math, 40-something million people that are taking care of the sickest among us who are not seeing their own doctors. So sometimes a doctor, while they're talking to that patient, can say, "Oh, by the way, see your own doctor. If you need for me to see you, make an appointment. I'll be glad to see you because I want to make sure you're okay too."
That gets back to what you have to do as a caregiver. You really need to take care of yourself and realize that is a way to care for the person that you care about.
I care for Gracie better when I'm in a healthy place.
And you probably hear that over and over. So I'm fascinated. You have written a book and you do a radio show. So the radio show is even syndicated.
I am. First ever syndicated show for caregivers.
And what is the thinking there? You're out there talking to all of these people all across the country who are caring for somebody and they feel isolated.
That's why I do the show, because now they can listen to somebody who speaks fluent caregiver. and I do. And we have a great time. We're goofy on the show, but at the core of it is my passion to grab as many caregivers as I can and help them get to a place of safety where they can make good, healthy decisions. Caregivers all live what I call a caregiver fog: fear, obligation, and guilt. And what happens when you get into a fog? You've got to slow down. And fear, obligation, and guilt will lead to heartache, anger, and turmoil. Fog Hat, because I like 70s music. And what's Fog Hat's #1 song? Slow Ride. See how that works? See what I did there? That's why I have a show. Fog of Caregivers.
Hat. Yeah.
Fear, obligation, and guilt. Fear, obligation, and guilt. And every caregiver struggles with that. We are tormented by guilt. We feel obligated to do all these things. And here's how you can tell if you feel obligated. I've got to, I need to, I should be, I must. You know, what I'm trying to help caregivers understand is, let's be a steward of this. I didn't do this to my wife, and I can't undo it. That's not my job. My job is to care for her to the best of my abilities. And ultimately, this belongs to God. I can't do this. I can't undo it. I tell people, look down at your hands. If you don't see nail prints, this ain't yours. I can't do this, but I can be a steward of it. And I can be a steward of the one person standing between her and even worse disaster, and that's me.
So what are some of the stories you've heard, I guess, from people that have read your book or that listen to your show that just kind of stick with you?
Well, I had a lady call in not too terribly long ago, and she was struggling with guilt. The thing, because when she was just leaving the nursing home facility where her mother had Alzheimer's, and she said, you know, when people, if she hasn't been to see her mother every day and somebody ask her how her mother's doing, she feels guilty because she wasn't there that day. And I said, whoa, put the brakes on. Is she warm? Yeah. Is she cared for? Yeah. Is she clean? Yeah. Is she well fed? Yeah. Does she know the passage of time? No. Does she know you? Sometimes. I said, you're doing what you can to care for this woman. You have made sure that she's cared for. She was an only child. You're doing a great job with it. And if somebody asks you, you don't need to feel guilty if you weren't there today. Give them a stock answer and say, she's well cared for and loved. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And let it go. You're doing what you need to be doing. You're not going to be any good to your mother if you're a husk of a person. This is what I do for caregivers.
Alzheimer's, is that on your show? Is that the biggest group of caregivers, you think?
Autism.
Autism.
Think about it. These parents that are taking care. We did a whole show on autism not too long ago. Last month was Down Syndrome Awareness Month. I had a friend of mine on with his son who's 39 years old with Down syndrome. Once you have a child with special needs, that's a lifetime commitment. And the child may not be terminal. Autism is not a terminal disease. So therefore, you've got to think way beyond your own grave at that point for this child. The moment that special needs child is born, you need to talk to your doctor, you need to talk to your pastor, and you need to talk to your financial planner in that order, and probably that quickly. And because these parents with children with autism, for example, and the spectrum is so wide.
Right.
But elopement is a huge issue. These kids will get up in the middle of the night and just walk off. Well, how does a parent sleep with that? What does sleep deprivation do to somebody with a child with special needs? This woman, I know she's a wonderful lady on the show, and her son was getting a haircut and just had a meltdown because think about it, scissors going next to somebody with autism. And he just had a meltdown. He doesn't look abnormal. So why is he acting this way? Everybody else is starting to stare and everything. And she said, I wanted to have a t-shirt that said, don't judge, it's autism. Mm-hmm. I'm on a mission to help that mother learn how to get to a place of safety where she can catch her breath and start dealing with people who criticize her and making better choices for her family, pointing to where technology can help monitor their home inside so that the son can't leave as much as he does. They've had to call the cops 5 times. He's not even 10 years old. Mm. And so these are things that are going on in families all across the country. And who is out there leading this charge and talking to these people and help them get to a place of sanity so they're not eating a tuna sandwich outside a mental hospital? That would be me.
That would be you. Yes. All right, we're going to take a break. If you want to call in, there's the number 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.